The Windtree Press Author Interviews, presented by Jane Killick.
Today we're joined by author of baby boomer fiction, Courtney Pierce. Courtney, welcome to the Windtree Press Author Interviews.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, Jane.
Well, in your Stitches trilogy, the first novel, a couple find an artefact which holds the key to immortality and their lives take a magical turn, which is a fascinating start for a novel. What interested you in the concept of immortality?
Well, it really didn't start out as the concept of immortality. It was about finding a magical artifact and then coming up with what that artifact would do. I looked at it more like a cross between the Thin Man series and Antique Roadshow, which I'm a huge fan of. And so it was that what if question of what if I found a magical artifact at an estate sale and it could do something fantastic. And the immortality part of the story didn't actually come until later.
So it was the magic which really interested you. Was it magic from the past? You talk about antiques.
It is the magic of heirlooms and the meaning of them and who touched them, who owned them. And there's always a story behind everything in someone's home.
It's a bit of fabric, isn't it, we should say?
It is. It's a piece of Egyptian fabric that is thousands of years old.
Hence Stitches, the title of the novel.
Yes.
So you knew you wanted something, with some sort of historical power. You seized on this idea of immortality. When you started to think about that, what really intrigued you about that concept?
It was about the quest for finding what's important in your life while you're alive. Mm-hmm. If you could live forever, what would be the point? And why is it important? And in my character's case, they felt a huge urgency to figure out what they wanted to do with their lives while they were alive and leave that legacy behind.
Because they're baby boomers, aren't they? And this is a generation that rather than retiring for a couple of years and then that's it, there's a whole new life after work.
That's exactly right. It is. The magic of the artifact is actually a metaphor for promise of the future and quest to do and put your money where your mouth is as far as what you've always wanted to do in your life and have the courage to do it. And my characters don't have the courage until they run into this magic.
So baby boomer fiction, it's really a new line of writing and literature that's coming out of modern day writers, really.
It is fairly new, and as baby boomers get older and go through this process themselves, many are becoming writers about their experience, and there's never been a generation that has experienced so much change in history ever. And now all the baby boomers are hitting in their 50s and 60s and even 70s and still have that childlike spirit that they've never, ever let go of.
And you're describing yourself, I take it, because you're part of this generation too.
I'm very much smack in the middle of this generation. And I actually went through the transition that my characters make, which was part of the inspiration for the story, is I left my corporate job and wanted to become a writer. And what do I do with that? And I had to go through and start all over again. And it was the most fascinating, fun thing I've ever done. And I feel like I did put my money where my mouth was.
And you were in Broadway as well. So it wasn't as if you had a kind of an accountant's job, which is very dull, 9 to 5.
Right.
Or does it seem different when you're actually working in that situation? Everyone else thinks it's great and you think, oh, it's rather mundane, actually.
Oh, I know. Everybody thinks it's so glamorous and all of that. It is really not. It's a job like everything else. But the one thing that is different is the inspiration that comes from seeing something created on stage and the imagination of it. And that's always sparked me. And this story was kind of hidden inside me for a couple of years before I left my job as I put it together. And I had such a burning passion to write it, more than I had craft to be able to do it. But I overcame that fear because I had such a commitment to the story.
I have to ask, what did you actually do in Broadway? You weren't sort of like treading the boards?
No, I was not on stage. I was behind the scenes. I was an executive, sales executive, overseeing 34 cities of touring Broadway shows. So the Lion Kings and the Wickeds and the Beauty and the Beasts, who all went out on the road, I oversaw that on their tours.
Everybody loves musicals at the moment. Do you think that's ever going to die?
I don't think it's ever going to die because of the positivity of it. Everybody wants an escape for 2.5 to 3 hours.
Don't we all? Which is, of course, another way that we can find in a book. We can escape in the book.
That's exactly right.
Well, one of the interesting things about how you came to write Stitches is that your mother was in hospital while you were writing, and some people, I think, would have folded under that pressure. But you managed to work through it, and I think it helped you in some way.
It really did, and that experience of being in those sandwich years of having elderly parents at the time you're really trying to figure out what you want to do with your own life in the last 30% of it is an interesting dilemma to be in. And as I went through that experience with both of my parents, it spawned the immortality storyline of the artifact, of going through and sitting with my mother and thinking she was going to pass, and ultimately my father did. But that was my way of keeping them alive in many ways. And the more dire the experience became, the more fun and funny I made the story to counteract the emotion of it.
It must be mixed feelings because your mother is still around, but sadly your father isn't. So she at least is being able to see your second wave, your new career as a writer.
Yes, and she's thrilled to be able to be here to do it.
Is she a reader? Is she reading your books?
Oh, she is. She's one of my biggest fans, actually. I've sold more books in the hospital than any other event that I've been at, because she always carries a big package of my bookmarks in the hospital when she goes in there and makes all the nurses and doctors buy my book. So I can't complain about that.
Isn't that fantastic? Well, Stitches is the first book of a trilogy, and there's more to come. There's 2 other books dealing with Brushes deals with art, doesn't it? And there's the 3rd book, which I haven't written down foolishly. What's the 3rd book?
It's called Riffs, and the 3 books are all the same characters with new ones coming in with each one, but the premise is all of the same, and the story arc goes from book 1 to book 3, and the characters change by the end of book 3 to realize what they really want to do in their life. So their character arc happens over 3 books. And the first book is sort of that magic of touch, sparks their creativity. And then there's the magic of art with a Caravaggio painting that they inherit from the woman they make immortal. And then the 3rd book is with 2 elderly jazz musicians that come into their life as a result of their actions in the 2nd book. And then the magic of music completely completes their story arc.
Well, you've got that trilogy is out, but you've got another book on the way. Tell me what's next for you.
Yes, it's called The Executrix, and it is the story. It's a standalone book. It's not a series of what happens with 3 middle-aged sisters after the death of their mother and all the trouble that they get into from the time she dies to when they scatter her ashes. And the real hook of it is that one of the sisters is a very best-selling romance author, and she finds a manuscript in her mother's safe. And what these 3 sisters do with that manuscript will cause all kinds of trouble.
So as we're talking, it's summer 2014, and that book is due out when?
I'm hoping by the end of the year. I'm in my final stages of edits, and then it goes to my editor. So I'm hopeful it'll be done in the next couple of months, and then I'll start the process of putting it together to get it released.
And we can find out more details, presumably, on your website, which give us the address.
It is Courtney-Pierce.com. Courtney-Pierce, Pierce.com.
Well, it's been great talking to you today. I'm Jane Killick. I've been talking to Courtney Pierce. Courtney, thanks very much.
Thank you, Jane. It's been a pleasure.
This has been a Windtree Press podcast. For more information, visit windtreepress.com.